This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Welcome everyone as we start our 6th year. It's hard to believe, it's almost a week already, of Orchos Chaim lhaRosh with the 11th and the 12th teaching steps that the Rosh advises us to a successful life. And we learn, as always, sponsored by Yoel Klugman and family, leading Nishmas Mishal Ben Moshe, Chava Bas Yudah Kohen Klugman, and for the successful shidduchim of their children. L'refuah shalema for Miriam Liba Bas Tavora and Chaim Ben Rachel, that they should have a refuah shalema b'seich shaycha Yisrael. Number 11, the Rosh tells us, Shelo yeshev im yoshvei kronos. You should not sit with people on the street corners. Now, who sits on the street corners? These are people that are idle people, what we call batlonim. Why? Because, if it's in the middle of the street, there's stores. There's houses, children to watch, garbage to be taken out. But on the street corners, there's nothing going on. On the corner, there's nothing. So people that hang out on the street corners are people that are idle people. Also, people that hang out in the corner, it's because they don't want to miss out on something. They want to see what's going on. They want to catch in all directions. They want to find some fun. They want to see what's going on. Now, the Rosh says, don't sit with such people. First of all, these people are not doing Torah. They're not doing Chesed. The Torah is the purpose of the world, right? So they're not learning Torah. They're not doing Chesed. They're not sitting and saying Tillim. So you don't want to sit with such people. But it's more than just that while you're with them, you're wasting time. You have to understand that if these people become your friends, then you will feel that it's all right to waste your life. Because that's the way we are. We're influenced by our peers. And these people, they feel, there's a big difference between somebody who's a fun person and somebody who's living properly. We're not saying that the people that are on the street corners aren't fun. They might be fun. They might be funny. You might be able to relax with them. But they're yoshvei kronos. They're wasting their life away. What do we say in the siyum that we make on Masechta? Right? That you didn't put my portion amongst those people that are idle. Right? I have a mission. I'm going to learn Torah. I want to finish Masechtas. I want to give nachas ruach liyotzreinu. Remember in Avos, it tells us from the worst things is a chaver ra and a shachen ra. A bad neighbor and a bad friend. A bad friend and a bad neighbor. Because when you have such peers, then you feel like it's okay. Because the group that you're in, this is the way they live their life. So they give sanction to wasting away your life. You don't want to stay with such people. Now earlier, I already mentioned that when you come in a shul and you choose your seat, don't sit in the back. Why would you want to sit in the back? Why would you want to sit far away from the chazan? Why would you want to sit far away from the Rav saying a drasha? Why would you want your children to sit amongst people who come late? Because generally people that come late, they don't want to be noticed, they sit in the back. So why would you place your children there when you're raising your children? You want them to always see people that come on time, that come early, Not people that are in the back. A lot of times the talkers are in the back. What are you doing? Now, then the lhaRosh says, V'loi b'yeshivas bate knesiyai shel amei haaretz. Now, it sounds like a contradiction. Bate knesiyai sounds like synagogues. And then it says shel amei haaretz. What this means is that you shouldn't sit in a gathering place. Knesiyos means gathering. You shouldn't sit in a gathering place of ignorant people. Now that means don't frequent places like the tavern, like the pub. Who stays there? Who comes there? Ignorant people. Why would a person be in a tavern? Either he should be in the Beis Medrash, or he should be home with his family. Why would he be in a tavern? That's yeshivas bate knesiyai shel amei haaretz. In general, most of the time, there might be exceptions, but most of the time, a pool hall isn't a place for a person to be. And there people hang around. They don't have lofty interests. Don't stay in Bate Knesset Shel Amei Haaretz. Now, it's interesting, we find in Avos, Rabbi Daisa ben Hurkanes says, Yeshivas Bate Knesset Shel Amei Haaretz Moitzian as Adam and Eilam. Habituating such places expels a person from the world. Why? Well, first of all, if it's a pub, a person could become an alcoholic. Now, an alcoholic, that's a ruination of a human being. Sometimes it's a ruination of generations. It's a ruination of marriage. But even without that, it's frequenting a place, a person that goes out to the tavern. So he starts neglecting his wife. His children learn bad habits. That's what my father is doing. Sometimes they lose respect for their father. So the lhaRosh says this is not the occupation of a Jewish man. Now in number 12, in Yud Beis, the lhaRosh tells us about another ruination. Shelo yistakel be'isha shehi asur alai. You should not gaze at a woman that is forbidden to him. A person shouldn't look at a woman that is forbidden to him. Now you have to know that we are living in a very decadent society. Now that it's the spring and the sun comes out, the heat's turned up, in America, the women take off most of their clothing. And if a person is not disciplined, a man likes to look at women. That's a fact. It says in Kriya Shema, in the third Pasha, we say it every day, you shouldn't go after your heart and after your eyes. Asher atem zonim achreihem. The pasuk admits that this is something that you're naturally drawn to turn to. So this takes very strong discipline. It's one of the great temptations of life. Now, but it's a woman that's forbidden is a serious problem, because we learn this out. The Gemara tells us, "V'nishmarta mikol davar ra." The pasuk says you should guard yourself from anything evil, and the Gemara says, what does that mean? Mikol davar ra, from anything bad. So it says, "Shalo yistakel adam be'isha na." You shouldn't gaze at a pretty woman. Now you have to understand that what's toiv, because here we're seeing the opposite of toiv. So toiv is Torah. Shenemar ein toiv el Torah. Shenemar ki lekach toiv nasati lochem Torasi al tazoivu. So good is Torah. What's bad? A woman that's forbidden. So you understand the Yetzer Hara that tries to get us not to do good, not to learn Torah, so what's the opposite? To lust after women. That's why the Rambam says that the Yetzer Hara of Aroyis, the Yetzer Hara of immorality, is found by a leiv poni min haTorah, by a heart that's empty from Torah, right? Because if you're not going to have the good, that vacuum is going to be filled with the ra. So here we have where a person is drawn to the beauty of a forbidden woman, which the lhaRosh is telling us this blocks us. This is an example of what he says. This blocks us lhaOrchos Chaim, to see in the light of life. You have to understand that if a person doesn't train himself, then there are people that can actually go to the mall, sit on a bench, and sit and watch the scantily clad women passing by. And there are people that say, well, listen, I can't touch, I can't come into physical contact, but there's nothing wrong with looking. I'm not hurting anybody by looking. So here, the lhaRosh is teaching us that this is mokshe maves. This is one of the snares of death, and it blocks us from lhaOrchos Chaim. Now, Rav Zilberstein in the Tufcha Yabiu gives a very big incentive. We know it says, "V'ani svilasi l'cha Hashem eis ratzon." May my prayers be to you, Hashem, in a time of favor. Says Rav Zilberstein that if a scantily clad female passes by and a person averts his eye, not to embarrass the woman, but a person averts his eye, so at that moment he does a mitzvah. He fulfills the lav of lo yisasura achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem. When you do a mitzvah, you create an eis ratzon. Just like when we make a bracha by the Torah, we can make a mishaberach, just like a woman that lights candles before Shabbos can pray then for her husband, children tell me they're chachamim. So too, when a person averts his eyes from looking at a woman, at that moment he did a mitzvah, he could ask Hashem for something. And Silberstein says that's an incentive for a person to avert his eyes, so that he could ask at that moment something from Hashem. There's plenty of opportunities now with the weather heating up in the American society to fulfill this idea of Rav Zilberstein. Rav Miller wrote, there was a sefer written by Rabbi Greenwald. He walked with Rav Miller in the 60s. And he relates that once Rav Miller was walking, and there was an old man in front of him, and the man was looking at a woman. And Rav Miller commented that this man, although he's old, is still chained to the Yetzer Hara because he didn't work on this discipline. So the lhaRosh tells us in one of his early, because here he's training us. He's training us. These are not easy things. These are not natural things. But he's training us in the way of Orchos Chaim. And remember we said it's 154 steps. It's Gematria El Mabah, the way to the afterlife. And that way is to try to train ourselves. We're not always going to be successful. But try to train ourselves to avoid gazing at a forbidden woman. As always, we want to thank you for joining us in this tour through the Orchos Chaim lhaRosh. Please remember to learn your Mishnayos if you can. If you would like to sponsor a share, 718-916-3100. We're still looking for a sponsor this week's Agoda share at Rabbi Landau, and of course the tape and the CD that I send all over the world. It's $300 to be a sponsor. A postal sponsor is $360, 718-916-3100, RMMWSI at AOL.com. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.